Hello and welcome back to On the Soul's Terms podcast. I'm your host, Chris Skidmore, and in this episode, I bring you a conversation with Thomas More, centered on the MC or the Midheaven, the 10th house, and the mysterious phenomenon of our calling in the world. I'm sure that most of you listening have heard of Thomas. If not, here is his bio in his words. Thomas More is the author of Care of the Soul, a bestseller on the New York Times list for almost a year. Since then, he has written 30 books on matters of soul and spirit. He lectures in many parts of the world, recently online in Rome, Brazil, Argentina, Romania, Malta, Russia, Serbia, the United States, and Canada. In those years, he has also been a psychotherapist influenced mainly by C.G. Jung and James Hillman, his close friend for 4 decades. He's won many awards, including an honorary doctorate from Lesley University and the 2003 Humanitarian Award from Einstein Medical School. He's been an archetypal analyst and an unaffiliated theologian. Thomas's most recent book is The Eloquence of Silence. He's also a musician and a father and husband in a remarkably creative family that includes artist Joan Hanley, musician Siobhan Moore, aka Ajit, and architect Abraham Bentheim. This is a conversation that is truly on the soul's terms. It's slow and deliberate, yet the listening here remains open to the mystery to pop in from time to time and steer us from beyond the known world. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed participating in it. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you on for our episode that as we go around the houses of the zodiac, we enter this really pivotal moment in a sense of the midheaven into the 10th house. So that place is really about a lot of things that you've written about in your career, which is the calling, the vocation, the soul at work, the shaping of oneself into the world, and the tension with the icy, the inner world, the underworldish, the emotional, the family, the landscapes that we're from. It's been a real pleasure to be reading your one of your books, which is A Life at Work, and just moving in and out of that, the elements that you're in there, kind of preparing me to talk to you and also giving me a lot of insight in the end about the 10th house and this place in the sky. So today's conversation will be ultimately aimed at that, but just a reflective journey between the two of us to really hear about some of your own path through that and your own journey through the evolving, seems like very multifaceted. You write about like having multiple threads sort of active in your life and a lot of change has to happen. And so this is where we're heading today. I'm curious about your reflections on this part of the sky or this part of the journey for human beings.
Well, it's extremely important because, for one thing, the way I look at the chart from the studies I did years ago was to see that 10th house, moving into the 10th house as being out there in the world, really way out there, like being the farthest reach. If you see the chart as, the kind of lower and higher elements, then you're really at the farthest out place you can be. And I'm a person who is very interior. I don't do well out there. And at least I thought I didn't. I mean, I've had to learn to be out in the world more and to be thrust out where I don't feel comfortable.
Huh.
So it's been a very important place for me personally as well. But I think for anyone, when you meet somebody, you say, well, what do you do? It's like right away you want to know who they are by what they do in the world. And so it's I would say that it has its own interiority, its own meaning. It's not just a matter of what job you have or what vocation you have, but who are you when you reach out, when you are taken out into the world? Who are you? And what have you done with that? What have you created? And what are the influences? That's so important. What factors have led you to where you are out there in the world?
Yeah, I'm getting that sense of shaping. It's interesting to hear you talk about that. That you're yourself feel very interior, and yet when I look at you're quite a public figure in a way, right? Many books, Care of the Soul, New York Times bestseller, all these. It was very. It ends up looking very outward focused, but the crux of your work is inward focused. So I guess just that tension would be a good place to start. I guess there's something of the interior exterior or the introvert extrovert conversation that kind of immediately pops up here. Of your own experience of that, like, were you dragged kicking and screaming into the world, or was it, is that how it felt for you, or was there also like you were pushed by something or pulled by something interior to shape yourself there?
For me, I spent the first 50 years of my life totally unknown and
How interesting.
not even knowing. As I look at it back at it now, I realized that the first 50 years of my life was preparation.
Huh.
It was going to school. I don't mean that literally. I mean, I was in training for the first 50 years. When I turned 50, literally, when I turned 50, I met my wife, person who is my wife now. And when I was 51, we had a daughter. I never thought I'd ever have a child. At 50, I thought, well, I'm going to be doing something else. And she is an absolute phenomenon in my life, totally. Total phenomenon. She's going to be 34 in a week. So I had 50 years of quiet and introversion. And when I wrote this book, Care of the Soul, I thought maybe it would fail as other books of mine had failed before in the sense of sales, selling a book, people being interested. So it was shocking to me that within the first year or so, we had sold 1 million copies of this book.
Yeah. Wow.
And that kind of changed my life.
Of course.
So I had an outward calling now. And I really entered it. I really did. I really got into it. And first of all, I discovered that I could really be a sort of a stand-up comic. I didn't know I had that in me. But people laughed at everything I said that I intended to be funny. And that helped me a lot to have a lot of laughter in my encounters with the public.
Yeah.
And I found that I really enjoy it. I found that I'm much better speaking to 1,000 people or 5,000 people than to 12. I get tongue-tied when I talk to 12 people, but when I have 1,000 or more people in front of me, I'm just in my element. So I don't know how to understand that, but there is this introversion that had a corresponding outward view. So I actually did enjoy and felt very fulfilled in being in front of large crowds for many years, 30 years, really.
And if you look back to because of course as an astrologer, I'm thinking Chiron and the Chiron return at 50, and maybe that mentor or teacher comes forward in you and all of the cave work, the Chiron cave work in you suddenly gets called out, like the world needs some of this medicine. And, and that it's curious to be 50, 51 and to go through so many of those Chiron-like changes. I'm super curious about that. But feeling that pull out of the cave, if you look back now at that time, what can you reflect on? I mean, it's a hard question to answer. It's a hard question to ask in a sense, but that interior alchemical sort of change that must have occurred. And are you able to articulate some of that?
Well, I think what happened to me is that first of all, I might add that when I was 13 years old, I left home to join a Catholic monastic community.
Okay.
And
wow.
be a Catholic priest. So something happened to me at 13 that just tugged me out of my home. I had a very wonderful, warm, amazing parents and family, large extended family. Very, very warm, full of heart. So it was very hard for me to do that. But it was necessary as I look back on it, because I would have been in a very small world, I think, had I stayed where I was. I entered a bigger world.
Mm.
I studying the classics at 13.
Wow.
I did. I studied Latin and Greek from that time for many years.
Did you?
And all of that comes now. I use Latin and Greek every day in my writing. I read everything in the originals, when I do my work now. And I love that. I learned to love to study and to love ideas. I love that. I learned that when I was 13. So what I'm saying, I guess, is that I had a very solid inner life.
Mm.
So that when I was moved to go outward, I didn't lose my inner life at all.
Mm.
I lose touch with it. What I tried to do is bring the things that I discovered in that interior out to the world, because I thought they were valuable. And I thought there were things that the world doesn't know about much.
Mm. And would you say, given that you've seen many chapters of the world in the years that you've been on the planet, would you say that's become more so with the advent of social media and the internet and these kinds of things? Do you think that we might be drawn even more so out from the interior world, or do you have a sense of that?
Well, for me, no. For me, the internet and computers have intensified my interior life.
Mm.
I write more intensely at the computer than I could ever have done writing either by hand, which is unthinkable, or at a typewriter, which I did at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I right now, well, like talking to you, to me, this is a very interior experience.
Yeah.
And I don't see any other people around us. And,
Yeah.
if I don't see them, they don't exist. So,
Yeah.
but I do this regularly. I speak, and I also teach a regular course, which I love doing online, of all the things that I'm interested in and I think are important. So my interior life and my outer life continue to be connected to each other very intimately and creatively.
Mm. Yeah, I feel that for you on a personal level. I guess my question is into the collective level. If you feel that, because I can see like the double edge of this technology, right? Like something brings us much more to the surface with this technology. But as you say, because we can connect so much more deeply with so much more material than if we just have to wander around and find something in a library that might or might not be in our town. There's so many limits to that. So I guess it's the double edge. But I do feel like that medicine of the deep interior, it feels to me like it may have been lost or maybe being found again. That medicine really needed in a world that does bring us up to sort of more of a narcissistic kind of look at me place, like the technologies do bring us more into that, right?
Yes, it depends what you do with it.
Yeah.
To me, having a computer in my life, it really has intensified my interior life.
Amazing.
No question about it.
Yeah.
And be able to explore things to, for me, for example, it depends how you use it. I listen to music constantly on my computer, so I wouldn't be doing it as intensely as I do if I didn't have that. That's another part of my own journey. When I was in this monastic world, I got interested in music, and eventually I left the religious order and left all that entirely And I thought I'd be a musician. And when I was in my 20s, most people knew me as a musician.
Really?
Yeah, I was a composition major in music schools, very fine music schools.
Mm.
And, uh, so I spent my time that way. And now, my typical day, like today, I play the piano for an hour and then I go to my computer and write for an hour. It's just my life.
That's a beautiful image because I'm seeing it as the the same thing and just different keys, right? It's two different keyboards.
Two different keyboards.
I love that. So from 13, so from 13 until somewhere in your 20s, you're in the
Yes.
monastic order. Did you become a priest?
No, I was about 6 months from that ending where I would become a priest that I gradually discovered, but then one morning woke up realizing for sure that I wasn't cut out for this.
Okay. Yeah.
And I left immediately. I mean, I just told them, I'm going. And the people in charge there said they were very nice people, very bright, very nice people. And I had no problem with them whatsoever. I thought it was a great. But I told him that no, I woke up this morning and realized that it's over for me. And he said, well, why don't you give yourself a year to sort it out? And I said, there's no sorting to be done. I just told you, I figured it out this morning.
Clarity.
I'm gone.
Just like that.
Yeah.
That's interesting because you tell a fable in the A Life at Work. You tell a fable of, do you remember the story you tell in that? Mahud or something?
Oh, yes, Mahmoud, sure.
Yeah, and he jumps in the river. I was really moved by that because I felt what a different take on calling. Do you remember like the basics of that story? Because maybe it'd be good to share.
Yes, we should mention if we brought it up. We should
Exactly,
say
it's
what
here now.
Yes, actually, what happened was I get a lot of. I used to get a lot of letters. Now I get a lot of emails, but I used to get a lot of correspondence from people, from readers. And I got a package from a woman in the United Arab Emirates. And she told me that there's a book that she used to give to her children when they got a certain age. And she thought I would appreciate it. So she sent it to me. And it was a beautiful little, almost like a children's book in very big lettering, telling the story of a man who was just doing his job. And one day an angel appeared and said, jump in the river. And so he jumped in the river, which is an amazing thing, to do what the angel says without any questions. So he jumped in the river and he was fished out downriver by another business person who gave him another job there. And then later the angel appeared, and once again, he didn't jump in the river anymore, but he changed jobs several times.
Mm-hmm.
And he always did what the angel said, and he always left what he had been doing and what he was attached to. And when he got to the end, when he got to be an old person, people started coming to him for advice and for guidance. And someone asked him one time, how did you become such a great teacher? And he said, well, it's very difficult to say. So that was it. That's the story. But I think it's a wonderful story of being willing to move when something appears. And for me, something appeared early on at 13.
Yeah.
It went against all my feeling, went against everything I wanted in my life. But something in me was strong enough to do it. And I still miss my parents and my brother. I had left my brother. It was very hard to do that, but I can look back and see that I don't know if I would have a life without having answered that call.
Yeah, much like Mahud there. But you bring up a really interesting felt sense underneath of that, because of course to jump in the river does require it requires something. Is it courage, or I don't know, to be the fool or something? It's like something is required of us to do
Yes.
that, which is painful. And as you're reflecting now, it remains. It's not like that just becomes something that's easy. However, as you say, the angel, like in the story, and that's what I'm kind of curious about with the MC. It's the midheaven, you know.
Yes.
And I think we think, oh, it's career and calling and all this kind of stuff. But it's the middle of the heavens.
That's right.
And it feels like, yeah.
Thing I think about is that I have Venus at my midheaven,
Uh-huh.
and my sun sign is Libra.
Uh-huh.
And so I have a lot of that Venusian spirit in me. I'm very involved in the arts, many arts, and have an artistic character, I think. And I also don't worry too much about whether what I'm doing makes sense or not. There's something about that Libran thing that is, I feel in me anyway. I think that's what it is in me. That just I go after what I want or what has pulled me, what I really love and what I like to see that I consider beautiful. It's very important to me. Not what I think it would be successful. That has no interest to me.
Right.
Or what would make me money really doesn't affect me at all, hardly.
Yeah.
It's something else.
You pull towards the Venusian, which is partly, that the big part of that is towards beauty and the creation of beauty and the service to meaning, I suppose, as well. And then the other layers of Venus, like values, what's valuable to you and your values, and holding that high as it is in the sky.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's also, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm thinking now of, excuse me, because it happens with me where I'll do this, another story pops in, but Psyche also jumps in the river, and I'm thinking about Aphrodite, Venus, and Psyche, and the jumping in the river of that journey as well.
Yes. The story of Psyche is very closely related to Venus. She identifies with Venus at the very beginning.
Yeah, it's what gets her into trouble in the first place.
Gets her in the trouble in the first place. But Venus helps her out in the end. So
yeah, true.
It's a very interesting thing. You can say that the soul and your sense of beauty are very important and closely connected.
Yeah, tied to each other. And I can hear, even as you're pulled towards the monastic order, and that helps you pick up Latin and ancient Greek, which amazing, because that gave you access to the beauty, right? But I mean, it's such a discipline to, like, there's so much discipline as well. It's not just the Venusian kind of like, follow your heart. I don't consider that to be the whole message here, because there's also such a shaping and a working and there's a struggle that I also hear when I'm reading your story too, like a wrestle.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing about that 10th house. I think is to remember the struggle, that tenant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of struggle to find your way and to trust and what not to trust, and to sort out what you can follow and what you really shouldn't follow. It's not easy to make those decisions.
No, and this is in your late 20s, just to come back to that, when you jump in the river and they say, give it a year, and you say, no.
I was 26, yeah.
You were 26, okay. And what was the next, what happened after that? You went in the direction of music at this point?
I did, yeah. I went to study at one of the really best schools we have here in music, University of Michigan. And I loved it. I loved doing that there. One of the problems I had with my musical career was that I studied with two very, very genius composers.
Mm.
I mean, genius beyond any human capacity you could imagine. Could do things that I thought that humans couldn't do in music. And that was a bit discouraging to me because I didn't have that same level of genius in music. I thought I was good, I was good at it. But I think it discouraged me. And that was one of the things that dissuaded me from continuing with it. So because I had been in a monastery and I had studied philosophy and theology there, and both of those, by the way, I taught in Latin. I mean, I was taught in Latin. I had to, the teacher came in the room and didn't speak a word of English, just spoke Latin.
Really?
Yeah. And we were studying some complicated issues in a language that is, a bit difficult to speak in. It's not really a spoken language.
Yeah.
But they did it, anyway. So, and my exams were in Latin. It's amazing. Oral exam.
Oh, my God. Wow.
So, anyway, I got through all that. And so when I came to the point of understanding that music, I really wanted to do something I could really be good at. And I thought music may not be the thing finally. So I went on to school and for a master's degree in theology, and a professor there said you should get a PhD in religion. I told him, I said, I want nothing to do with religion. I left that, years ago. When I left the monastery, I left religion. I want nothing to do with it. He said, I think you do. I can tell you do. And he said, you should go to this university, Syracuse University. So I wrote the university in Syracuse, and I told them I was interested in their program. And they said, well, write a paper, 12-page paper of how you think religion should be taught. So I did. And they wrote back and offered me free tuition and a stipend for living while I was there.
Oh, my God.
And no teaching requirements. I didn't have to do anything.
From a 12-page essay.
Yeah. So I figured I must have, done a pretty good job with that one.
Yeah, pretty good.
So I went there, and it was a total enlightenment. Doors opened for me. I didn't know.
Wow.
The whole world opened for me there. A world opened to me. And I made contacts, and I don't know, I learned things that I didn't know I had to learn, And I was so excited. And then I figured I'd just be a professor the rest of my life. So I liked it, and I really liked what I saw in the professor's life there. I thought, this is great, to be at a university with a great library and interesting students. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I discovered Carl Jung there. The first seminar I took, we were assigned to read the collected works of Jung. That's 18 volumes.
All of them?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh, my God. Okay.
That was quite a job. But I read them, and I read them with great interest and intensely. And before I left Syracuse, I read them all once more.
Oh, my God.
So I left there really knowing Jung very well.
Yeah.
But I also knew that I didn't want to become a Jungian
Interesting.
analyst. I realized that, there was something there that I didn't want to get into. I saw something dangerous in that.
Interesting. Could you elaborate on that slightly? Is there a way to elaborate a little bit? I'm just super curious about that.
Not to offend anyone, that's the only thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I want to say that even now, if I were down in my office now, I'd show you right next to me is the collected works of Jung that I read constantly.
Do you? Wow.
Totally devoted to Jung, but I don't want to be a Jungian. To me, it's a little like being a Catholic and having a pope. I've been through that. I don't need that again.
Sure, I got you. Yeah.
So I met James Hillman then when I was at Syracuse. I didn't meet him in person. I met him by correspondence, and he and I corresponded. He was at the time head of the studies program in Zurich at the Jung Institute there. And he was writing. And he was very devoted to Jung, and he knew Jung better than anyone I've ever known, and was totally devoted to Jung, and knew Jung personally, had a personal relationship with Jung. And but he went his own way, in his own direction. And I liked what he did. He moved Jung along in a new way, fresh way. And I liked what he was doing. So I began to be more connected with him. And he and I became very close friends. I met him when, by coincidence, if you could call it that, we both ended up living in Dallas, Texas. And I met him there, and then we lived in the same city for about 6 years.
Did you?
Spent a lot of time together, did a lot of work together. So out of that tremendous study of what at Syracuse they called religion, it doesn't mean only religious institution. It means the quest for meaning and mystery. Whether it's in art, literature, whatever. That was the focus of the program I was in. So I did not study the religious traditions. I studied the great literature of the world, the mythologies and the ordinary, what's called secular literature. There's no such thing, but that's what, I studied that and intensely, and depth psychology, Freud, Jung, and other psychologies. And so I came out of there with this very rich, broad, encompassing view. I didn't know what to call myself. Is that a psychologist? I don't think so. Is a theologian? Not in the usual sense, because I was not connected to any belief system. But it was a very dedicated exploration of the mysteries of life. And astrology would be part of that, of course.
Yeah.
And so I wrote my dissertation on Marsilio Ficino, who was an astrologer in Florence in the mid-15th century, 1400s. A very remarkable man. I wrote, and in order to write my dissertation, I had to translate a book of his only book on astrology, which translated from Renaissance Latin, which was much more difficult than the Latin I was used to. But I did it anyway, and wrote. And then The Planets Within, the book The Planets Within, is a total rewrite of my dissertation on Ficino.
Is it? Wow. And what? Because I have not read The Planets Within, Brian Clark, who put us in touch, said, that's really one to go back to. But I'm so curious about Renaissance astrology and what Ficino's taken. I know that's an enormous topic to get into, but is there a thread or a seed you could give us here about?
Yes, I could give you a little nutshell.
Yeah.
He had read, now I'm going to have to use names, I hope that's all right, Plotinus,
yeah,
who was a Greek philosopher of about the 3rd century A.D., who was called a Neoplatonist, so he followed Plato. Plato, who was an artist and philosopher. And he had also read the Corpus Hermeticum, which is a set of books about magic, of practical magic. And he was very interested in that. And he had also read an interesting book by an Arab writer called his name was Al-Kindi, and his book was called The Stellar Rays. The stellar rays, the rays of the stars.
Oh, stellar rays.
Rays,
Yeah.
rays.
Mm.
And his idea of Kindi now, Al-Kindi's idea, was that the planets shed rays. You can tell they're sparkling, and they shed these rays down onto the earth, and they enter everything in the earth, including each person and each thing. And Ficino picked up on that, and he developed his own astrology based on the stellar rays. And his idea was that what we have to do with our lives to fulfill them is to find those things in life that contain the rays that we need.
Wow.
And you're going to find them. They're going to be embedded in the things of the world around you. And you try to bring those things into your life. And you cultivate those things and those qualities in your life. And in that way, it's like a nurturing of your soul. It's like it feeds your soul to get these rays into your soul. And you become someone of power and purpose as a result. And it was simple things like, if you, let's say, like I have Venus in my midheaven, he would say, I should really wear green often.
Okay.
Venusian green. He explores that. And he says I should have certain plants around me that evoke Venus. And there are other things, but we have to have the other possibilities, like Jupiter, he says, will be found in peppermint. So eat peppermint when you can, get the Jupiter spirit in you. And he developed this whole way of life based on these stellar rays. And so that had a big impact on me. And I don't take that too literally, although I do take it somewhat very concretely, but also very metaphorically. So for example, nowadays I will go to a hospital. I'm very interested in speaking to medical people about what they do from a soul perspective. And I'll tell them a little bit about these rays and tell them that they would be well advised to have certain colors and textures in their hospitals and in their hospices and their medical offices, so that the influences that they evoke through the things around them are going to be useful for their healing work.
Fascinating. And is that received? Is there an ability by many in there to receive that?
A lot of people think I'm crazy.
Yeah, that's okay.
But no, I'd say a third of the people that I speak to are very interested.
Yeah.
The doctors who have changed their whole method of doing their work because of it. Others just think it's crazy, and
of course. Yeah.
And they complain. They don't just leave me alone. They complain and tell me I shouldn't be doing these things.
Oh, okay. You get in trouble.
Yeah, I do get in trouble. That's part of the job that's interesting.
Yeah. What sign is your Venus in, by the way? What is your midheaven?
My Venus is in Virgo.
In Virgo. Okay. And your midheaven as well?
The midheaven is in Virgo.
Yeah.
Now there I don't have this
testing
memory.
You.
That's about the best I can do.
That's perfect. Yeah. So I'm just feeling that. I just wanted to feel that of how that Venus is showing up and in what way. And especially going into these places of service like hospitals and trying to make them more beautiful. And then being called crazy because, of course, that's just, it's coming from a different place. It's coming from a feminine soul, essentially. It's coming from the soul itself. which when you try to take out what's random, trying to take out chance, then you can lose a lot of that, in sterile environments. So it's, which is necessarily sterile on one level, right?
I don't know. They overdo it. But I have to, the doctors today are educated, so they're indoctrinated really in a scientific, materialistic, technical approach to medicine, to the human body, and to illness. And what I bring up is something entirely different from a whole different point of view. Now, I was telling you before we started, my wife and daughter are at an Ayurvedic center in Bali.
In Bali, yeah, around the corner.
Be around the corner.
Yeah.
They're telling me about it. Of course, my daughter's been there many, many times, but it's the first time for my wife, and she was telling me, oh, beauty is such an important part, and it's a very soft approach to medicine, but it's so very effective. She's so much better than she's only been there 3 or 4 days, and she's already so much better.
Beautiful.
And it's I think it's very unfortunate that our medical system has surrendered to science. They think it's the answer to everything, but it really isn't.
Well said. So the infusion of soul and imagination and beauty and color and vibrancy and life force and eros, you're an advocate for that. And some people laugh you off the stage.
Yes.
But that's okay because you learnt to be a comedian quite early on.
That's right. That's right.
Mercury is the ruler of your midheaven. So, I'm sure you're able to create some humor along the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. Also, people often tell me that they see a certain Irishness in me.
I see that. Yeah, I can see that.
And, my family is largely from Ireland, not entirely, but my mother's side is all Irish.
No, mine too.
Really?
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time in Ireland in my life. Lived there for 2 years when I was 20. And now my daughter lives in Ireland, and we visit her. But I've been many, many. That's why, because I took our children so often to Ireland, they want to live there.
Oh, amazing! I've actually never been, even though it's my mother's maiden name is Slattery, which is a very Irish name.
Very good one.
Yeah, so that lineage piece, because actually that's an interesting element of the MC is also the IC, our roots, the fourth house, the roots, and the that sense of home and lineage and ancestry. Yes. And I love that you brought that up in this book, A Life at Work, because I felt like, I felt a great relief in my system that the root system is talked about in terms of the place in the world. And many of your stories therapeutically of the people that you worked with was to really connect them back to what they love and what their roots are and what their family. Even you had a story in the book I just read this morning about a woman who was so depressed in this new place, and you encouraged her to call her mother about some recipes and some to cook the food and have the smells and the spices around her from that home world. And there was it seemed in your story there of like a sparking of a whole new calling, which I love that pull both ways between the roots and the world.
Yes, they're very deep and effective. We don't think about them that way because it's not so obvious. It's not something we can manipulate the way we can manipulate other things. But we can see the value, and we can make moves. Like with that woman, what I do as a therapist, I just, I'm not there to figure people out. that's worthless, really.
Yeah.
But my job is to try to help them see how they might make moves that will get them back in touch with the deeper roots, as you say. I like that word root for them, their lives. And in this case, I remember that case fairly well. And this woman felt her life was empty and no purpose and no meaning. And I felt the best place to start to find meaning is in your roots. So I just suggested that she call her mother to get this recipe. Of course, I knew that she was not talking to her mother, and so I figured, well, this is a way to get her connected with her mother again too, which is a way of being connected with your roots.
Yeah, of course.
And that happened, and she no longer had any room in her life for emptiness, for meaning.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, and I can just imagine like just the smells and the food and the nurturance and the sustenance and everything that involves, like what you're bringing in and what you're tasting and and the way that food would connect you back. And then out of that, because that's what I think, you bring up also in the book, which again, these are elements that are fresh for me, but probably a while ago for you. But you bring up Rapunzel and the root vegetable, the rampion, and I haven't decided what fairy tale I'll do for the 10th, but it well might be Rapunzel. So let's, there could be an opening for that, because the way you describe it with what this longing is when these two are trying to have a child, which is an interesting metaphorical sort of place. They're trying to give birth to something, right? In the world, maybe we could say, if we're bringing it into the 10th. And there's the longing for the root vegetable, but it's over the wall and it's down in the witches, enchantresses, seductresses' lair kind of thing.
Right.
And then you bring in this tension point between the tower, because people pretty much know Rapunzel, so in the collective, but the root that she was trying to get and the tower that her daughter ends up being trapped in. And yeah, you elaborate beautifully on that. I wonder if we could...
You want to talk about that a bit?
Talk about it.
It's a wonderful fairy tale. Rapunzel, the clue is that Rapunzel is a vegetable. It's I understand. It's a little like a carrot or more like what do you call it? I can't remember what they call it.
It's called a rampion. I don't know what that is, but maybe is it like a turnip or something?
Like turnip, that's the word I was looking for. It's more like a turnip, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like a carrot too, like it's in the ground, the thing itself is a root.
Yeah.
The ground. And this is her mother craves these rampion, these turnips. And the seductor, the rivers, the witch, tells her that tells the husband, the father, that that they can have some as long as she can have the child when she's 12. And the mother needs the rampion so badly that the father agrees to it. So at 12 years old, the witch takes the girl and locks her up in the top of a tall tower. And I see that as an imprisonment in an environment that is exactly opposite to her nature. Nature is to be deep in the ground. And in fact, the carrot or a turnip has the shape of a tower, Oh,
like yeah.
And so strong connection between those things. And eventually she is released by a prince who comes by, hearing her sing. So it's song that frees her. It's art. It's art that frees from the tower. And they still have complications, but eventually it all works out. And but I think that's a very interesting image for our situation where we're way too. Most of us, I think, are too high in our thoughts. That's why I like depth psychology. I like working in these areas and the soul is more about depth than it is about height. Spirit is height and soul is depth. So that spirit soul issue gets played out in the Rapunzel story. Pretty interesting.
And as you say, and it's like so much up and down movement because the husband has to climb the wall to get down into the garden and then climb back up and back down and back up. The prince has to climb up the tower with the hair. The mother even is climbing up the tower with the hair.
Right. It's all about getting up and down.
It's all about getting up and down, yeah.
And that's, I think, where we are lots of the times. A lot of the time we are trying to reach the heights in one way or another. I often point out that in our language, we're often trying to, like we talk about higher education.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started out talking about care of the soul, I was promoting lower education. about the advantages. What about being educated in the lower things, the deep? And I'm still doing that. I still think that's the thing. So I'm not big on higher education.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because that's very much ninth house, which comes into the 10th, is still talked about in astrology as higher education. But that centaur that's in Sagittarius could be, and it's not, but it could take us into Chiron and the animal and the 4 feet that are on the ground, and the archer maybe aiming up, right? But they still got the 4 feet on the ground. It's a powerful image in our stars for that.
Compromise, yeah. Or solution, yeah. That's a nice one. I hadn't thought of that one before. That's good.
And even where Pelion is, where Chiron's from, and the Olympus, the Mount Pelion, Mount Olympus as being perhaps the two sides to that ninth, connecting into centauric themes.
Yes. I've often thought of the centaur as and also of the healing lessons being given in the cave with centaurs present. That they've got those 4 feet on the ground and pretty heavy, pretty grounded. But there are a lot of stories of flying horses, like Pegasus
which is a very ninth house image sprouting out of the 8th house underworld into the.
Yes.
Of course, Pegasus just means spring, right? Give or take.
It is a spring. It's the name of a spring as far as that, because according to the story, Pegasus, when he is released from the Gorgon, from Medusa, the hero comes along, Perseus comes along and cuts the head off. So, and out springs Pegasus. And as soon as he comes out, his hoof hits the ground and a spring develops from that event. And that spring was the spring of the Muses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That spring was the spring of the Muses. So that brings us back to mnemosiny and cellular memory and the Muses that lead us into the ninth with the hoof or the foot that lead to the spring. That's a very different image than higher education, expanding one's mind. And then just as you were talking, I was thinking about that turnip. I don't really know what a rampion is. I definitely don't know what a Rapunzel is, but I can envision a turnip and also cutting off the head of the turnip in order to cook it as well. That kind of like image.
That's true.
Which feels around up here.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time with Hillman, and did you a blue fire, that's you working with him, isn't it?
Let me clarify that.
Okay, please do, because I don't know.
Well, I have a chance.
Yes.
We were living in Dallas, as I said, and I got wind of the fact that some people were thinking about putting together a collection of his writings, like an anthology.
Yeah.
And people I heard were going to do it, I didn't think could do it well. So I thought I was going to throw my hat in the ring about that one. So I made a plan to write a book that would be an anthology of his writings up to that time. I mean, now it doesn't have his latest writings in it, but a lot of his writing. And I went to him and I said, I'm thinking of writing an anthology of your writings. And I think it would, really help people. Not only that, but I'd like to write I like to write a lot in it, like essays and things that will help people read because people find your work difficult. And but I said, there's one thing about it. I will only do it if it is my book and not yours. I'm not going to do it if you want to cooperate on this project. This is not a book of cooperating and co-authors. I'm not going to do it. And so he thought about it for a while because he knew it meant surrendering something. And so he came back to me and he said, okay, I can agree to that. And I said to him, okay, and I'll tell you what, how about if I'll finish, when I finish the manuscript, I'll bring it to you. And together we can look over it. And if there's anything you want to change that I feel okay about, we'll change. So we agreed to that. So that's what we did. I worked very hard. This was before computer life.
Oh.
I had to photocopy pages and pages. I had this big folder full of photocopied pages. And I wrote a lot for that book. I wrote a long introduction to the book itself, and I wrote introductions to each section. And I went to his house, and I spent 3 days with him at his house. And every day we met for a while, a few hours, and we went over page by page. And when there was something, he said, I'd like to add a sentence. I said, let's do that. We added a sentence. There's something he didn't want, we take it out. But I wouldn't let him do anything else. I told him, you can name the book if you want. And he said, okay, let's call it A Blue Fire. I said, I have no idea what that means. He said, that's all right. So we, in that sense, there was some collaborating, but it was not on the substance of the book at all.
It wasn't on the substance of the book.
I mean, there was not collaborating. We did not together decide what selections to make.
Okay.
I did.
Yes.
I did. And I wrote all of the other material in the book myself.
Got it.
Hard job. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think the way it's presented, people think that, I don't know, that I wrote a few footnotes. That's not the way it was.
No. Okay.
And he and I did collaborate at the end on incidentals.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. It actually gives me an extra appreciation for the book because of it's interesting then I can actually understand the blue fire of it as far as alchemical heat.
Yes.
That had to get that hot in order to, and there's probably still some heat in it by the sounds of that.
There is, obviously.
Clearly.
And I think the other thing is that at that time, Hillman was very interested in the color blue anyway. He wrote many essays on chemical colors, and blue was one of his main interests.
I actually, because I was at Pacifica just having a wander around and looking at their library and things, I picked up something, and I don't know what book this was, but it may have been a Hillman essay about the color blue and maybe you can clarify this for me, if there was an idea that in the ancient world they didn't have the color blue, or they had like the sea was called like a wine red sea and this kind of thing, like that blue as a color came in later.
I remember him writing about it, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
It was just like a little fragment that caught my attention, and then I just left it, and you're bringing the fragment back. Yeah.
I remember him saying that. One time, this is probably totally irrelevant, but one time we were living in Dallas, and a lot of people came into Dallas just to be around him for a while. And they stayed for a few months, and some of them stayed in my house. And many of them came to my house for conversations and sessions, together. And one time I asked him if he would come and lead a discussion with us some evening at my house. And he came one night, just once, and his theme for that night was blue, the color blue. And I hadn't read that. I don't think he had written it yet, really.
Yeah.
And so it always stayed with me. It was a special work of his because of that, because he had chosen that for his theme for that night.
And what's the heart of it? What do you think grabs him about that color?
I think part of it was his interest in depression. Depression was one of his primary interests.
Yeah.
He wanted to save depression. He wanted to say that depression is a way of being human. It's not an aberration always. It may reach a point, as almost anything can, where it becomes a problem. But in itself, it is not. It's a natural way to be a human being. And he talked about it as the soul's capacity to pathologize. That is to that the soul gets sick. It has problems. That's one of the ways the soul exists and benefits a great deal from those problems. So that's why in our work, following him, we always talk about going with the symptom. And so if someone has a problem, we say, let's not try to get rid of the problem. Let's go into it. See what it can be when it is transformed through careful reflection.
And amplification.
Yeah.
It's because he wrote that or gave that speech to a room of astrologers. Heaven holds half of, I can't remember the full title, Heaven holds half of the world's maladies or something like that. Heaven holds half of human maladies. I can't remember exactly what it is. And in that, he actually speaks to Saturn in his own chart as something that he has learnt to really love. Even if it weren't for that part of him that could be dejected and down and flat and lifeless and, all of these Saturnian things, then he wouldn't have been able to give so much time to his words and his writing and his soul work.
Yes, that was one of his main themes.
Yeah.
And he, if you saw him some morning, you'd say, well, how you doing this morning? He might say, oh, terrible. This is a terrible day, I can tell.
Yeah, I love that.
He would never play a cheerful one unless he really
I love that. Yeah, he was good at that, being real. What did Ficino say about the color blue? Is there a planetary alignment with blue?
I don't recall any blue in Ficino. I recall many other colors, but I don't recall any blue. I don't think he did refer to blue.
That's interesting, because I would initially imagine it to be Neptune, but he's writing before Neptune is discovered.
Yeah, it may be because of the planetary colors that he did not do that. I'm not 100% sure of that, because I'm thinking, the discovery of lapis lazuli was very important for art.
The discovery of what?
Of lapis, the color.
Okay.
A blue color.
Right.
And I think it was right around that time. So I have a hunch that Ficino did not have as much access to blue as most people. But I'm just guessing there. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. I've still got that fragment coming up in my mind of the wine red sea or the dark wine sea or this kind of thing.
I know what you're referring to, but I don't know the context.
Yeah. Okay, so then you come through your Chiron return into your 50s and you meet your wife, have a daughter, and you write Care of the Soul, which is really that kind of quintessential book, you know. What an incredible shift at that point. Did it feel like that it was a watershed? Yeah.
Overnight. I mean, I had no money, you know. I had no money
Yeah.
when at that point when I turned 50. I remember once driving in my car to do some therapy hours to try to make some money, and I had $4 in my wallet.
Wow.
Nothing in the bank there, except I did have, I think, $600 in case I needed to go to take care of my parents. I kept enough money to be able to get to see my parents.
Huh.
I had nothing. So financially, that's a factor, you know, in your life. I was fine. I didn't need money. I really didn't feel I needed money. I lived a very rich life.
Mm.
I feel like Thoreau, who says that, you know, he's wealthy because he has so many green trees around him.
Yeah. And he built his house for like $1 or something.
Yeah, $14.
Yeah.
So I felt that way, that I didn't need the money and I didn't want to have to think about it and do things I didn't want to do to make that money, because I could live on what I was making,
Mm.
but it wasn't high living at all. It was very little. My accountant used to tell me every year, he'd say, Tom, next year try to make enough money to owe some taxes. He was trying to give me advice. So, for one thing, I was able to make a decent living off this book. It sold, you know, as I say, millions of copies.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, but even then, you know, it's never been a factor for me or my wife either. But still, it changed life. And I felt good to be able to raise a couple of children. I had a stepson, my wife had a son.
Oh, wow.
And so we had 2 kids, and I was very happy I could at least, you know, take care of them.
Yeah.
And, that was a big change. And then traveling so much, I just had to, all the publishers I worked for, I went from one publisher to another after a while. And they all wanted me to go on these long book tours. At the time, that was the way you sold books.
Mm.
Don't do that as much today. They do it somewhat, but not the way they did. And so I remember going on 40 city book tours.
Shit. Wow.
I got pneumonia 3 times.
Oh my
and
God.
It was very difficult, grueling, because you have to fly so much and get into a city and do interviews during the day and give a talk at night and go on to the next city. It was very, very hard to do, but I did it for a long, long time.
Mm. Wow, that's like really feeling you're getting pulled out of the cave and exposed into the 10th there.
It is. It's certainly being exposed, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I loved it. I really enjoyed being with people. It was difficult to keep my health. I think being on planes all the time is not the healthiest thing. And not sleeping too, going through time zones constantly. And I think that was difficult, but I really loved meeting people and talking to people and meeting some interesting people that have achieved a lot, because as an author, I'd be in situations where I'd meet interesting people, you know, actors and other writers and, you know, people who have accomplished things. That was really very interesting for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how in the psychological types where there's that, what I'm hearing in you is that pull from the introversion out to the extroversion, which Seems to be part of that, right? I'm kind of currently reading the Marie-Louise von Franz and Hillman book on types. And von Franz says that there's a sense of like there's an unlived other side that could suddenly erupt or find its way either way.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's probably true. And I didn't feel that I was going into a totally unwanted area, being so public. I liked it.
You liked it, yeah. Can feel that.
I felt very much very capable and very fulfilled and satisfied. And I enjoyed media. I did a lot of radio and television. I mean, constantly doing television and radio and movies. Some not Hollywood movies, but like documentaries I'd be part of. Enjoyed all of that very much.
It's kind of this back to the root vegetable and the sort of fullness of that with your deep root system of 50 years of investing in it.
Right. Big investment. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, yeah, I'm feeling that we need to start winding down, although I'd like to talk to you for another 3 hours, but I'll be respectful of your night world.
I feel like really about myself. That doesn't feel quite right.
No, well, maybe we can pivot into, because there's so much in what you're talking about that is very valuable actually in your own story, but maybe we can pivot into that kind of like public facing, if we were to talk to the people listening about calling, because I mean, must have so many questions, right? It's often, as a therapist, like a big component, obviously, of like, what's my place in the world? What should I be doing is such a kind of pivotal and critical question that can happen throughout someone's life as well. So I guess we could speak into that, you know, like one question could be if people out there feel like adrift or without a direction towards their place in the world, is there anything you could say to that?
Well, a lot of things, yeah. One thing I might say is that one thing that Hillman doesn't bring up too much, but I think is very important in this regard, is the importance of childhood experience and family background. Even if it's grandfathers and great-grandfathers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and aunts and uncles. These people have a tremendous impact on people in terms of their career, seems to me, in many different ways. I've had many clients in therapy who have had a strong desire to do something in their life, and their parents have discouraged them. If they happened outright when they were younger, forbade them to pursue that. They tell them that this is not acceptable, even to the point of saying, we won't have anything more to do with you if you go in that direction. I've heard that, you know. So parents have a problem. One of the problems of a person finding their way in life is their parents, you know, of not knowing how to support someone, a child, and then a grown child, to support them in finding their way, because it is a discovery. It's a process. It's an adventure. You know, it's not a simple rational decision. It's never simple. But on the negative side, parents can really be a problem. And I so wish parents could be taught somehow how to support a person's movement into their own future, into their own. So that's one thing. I run into this frequently as a therapist today, even today.
Yeah. Okay.
And another is that it takes a while. Like for me, if I were to say that like I came to this point where I published Care of the Soul, I really feel like that's a rival point for me in some ways. I can see everything that happened before it. Leaving home at 13. That was part of that movement.
Mm.
And if you asked me at 13 what I was going to be, I wouldn't have the slightest clue.
Yeah.
And then leaving the religious order I was in, I didn't know what was going to happen next. But that step was crucial to what was going to come along. And one thing I haven't mentioned is that when I was teaching at a university and loving it and enjoying it, planning on spending my whole life doing it, my good friend who was the chair of the department called me in one day and said, the faculty's decided not to give you tenure. You've got to leave.
Oh.
We'll give you tenure and then you have to leave. And I didn't know what to do next.
Wow.
But, by then I was about, 30, 32 or something. No, I was about 30. No, I was early. I was almost 40 then. And so I didn't know what to do. And people right away, when they found out that I wasn't teaching, they asked me if I would be their therapist.
Huh.
And I happened to be able to get a license then because I had done enough training.
Huh.
I did the training to be a good teacher, really, but then it was useful because I then opened up my office as a therapist. So here I am talking about myself again, but I feel that my point I was going to make was that you don't know where you're headed. It's not like you can find out now what you're going to be. You have to ask, what is the next step?
Mm.
And
yeah, that feels really important. And sometimes, like you've said, because in your story, sometimes you got to leave or jump in the river, but sometimes you're pushed out, right. You're shoved out. And I would say also to the earlier point, what struck me is like with the parents, that denial of the thing that you're meant to be could also be used as like the stone in which you've got to sharpen the sword, though, right? I mean, in some ways it's like, yes, you were told that, so you have a Saturnian like figure who's swallowing the children and doesn't want them to become themselves. And at the same time, that's your story, right? And to use that story. I just read a part of your book where you were like, because I can relate to this, where that can be that indignant part of the soul is like, well, I'll show you kind of thing. And that can be a really kind of, although that sounds like some shadow material, it can be a really, when used right, it can be fuel for that actual pushing towards your thing in the world.
Yes, there's no question about it. It can be, but it can go both ways.
Of course. Yeah.
You have to be ready for both.
Yeah.
So I do think even so, because so many people, it seems, don't take that as a goad to go forward.
Yeah.
They are discouraged by their parents or their family and just don't want the fight. It works both ways. It can, for some people, it seems to be able to move them ahead because they say, okay, I'll show you.
Yeah.
But the others get discouraged and they live lives of dejection.
Yeah, living without the vision and and then letting it be really swallowed up by the Saturnian of being just, that's what I feel like, eaten, swallowed.
Yes.
And never to return back out to life, that's the scary. Even though in the myth we see, like there's a regurgitation and a sort of springing back out from Saturn's belly. It's not the end of the story when we get swallowed. It can feel like the end of the story, and there can just be so much lead there, so much heavy weight. And maybe also because we then invest in that life that isn't that we put more and more investment into the not our life, and sort of get bigger stakes to stay in the thing we don't really want to do. Kind of comes back to the part you're talking about with the story of Mahud and his ability to follow the angel's voice and jump in the river.
Of course, you also have to remember that it's the angel. And I don't think that we are prepared very well to follow angels. It's too bad. I often say to people that if I could start over and decide a new profession, I definitely would become an angelologist because it's so interesting, the angels. And we have the story of this angel that is giving this man life.
Yeah.
Important figure. And it's not unrelated to the Christian story of the Virgin Mary being told by an angel that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And the angel waits for a response, and she says, let it be, okay. That's similar to Mahud, okay.
Yeah.
And that little interchange, big things happen.
Yeah. And then I guess you have the other side, which might be of wrestling with the angel, like Job, and a wrestle that has to go on. There could be many interactions with the angel.
Oh, yes. Yes, angels do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And react to them in different ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes, the word angel means messenger or message. Sometimes they have a message to give you, and you've got to listen to it. And you have to maybe agree or not agree to the proposal. And sometimes that's difficult. So there may be a struggle. But I still think that it's my idea was that we don't think about that there can be such a thing as a visitation to tell you what your vocation is. See, I've always taken that story of the Annunciation in Christianity. The angel appears and the Virgin is there reading a book. And the angel tells her that she's going to be pregnant, or she's pregnant. Not going to be, but is pregnant. And I've often thought that story is one for every one of us. And that angel appears more than once to tell us that we are pregnant. There's something growing in us now. Are you going to go along with this, or are you going to ignore it and reject it? It's up to you. And so I think that's a very important moment. But we have to realize that it's not about weighing how much money you're going to make.
Yeah.
Or what the future is of advancement in your job. That's not the point. Your career is about your being, about who you are as a person, first of all. And the only thing that can help you with that is something that is not part of this world.
Hence the word vocation, right? I mean, that does imply that something's calling from somewhere. Someone is calling from somewhere that's not you.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I'm also thinking about the 10th house and its relationship to mother and matter. And our stories today, Rapunzel included in that, have been stories of being impregnated with something, right? Like something wants to be birthed into the 10th, metaphorically, not literally. Wants to be birthed through you that is not you and is you. This kind of, like the child that is conceived inside of yourself, and how to follow that sort of gestation towards that birth.
It's because we become new people. We become a different person, really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then shaped by that force in the world as well, which feels very 10th. It does take shape, and it has its own way of shaping us. I'm just taking a moment with all of that because it's really valuable, I think, valuable information. And I also think another thing of what you're saying, and also in your own story, is to see that the training for what you're to do in this world is like there's some strange thing happening, I think, in the 10th where, for instance, for me, I taught English in Taiwan for 5.5 years, which one part of me says like that was not part of my journey, as an astrologer and a psychotherapist, craniosacral, and all the things that I do in writing and podcasting and things. That the teaching English and I had kindergarten kids actually. For 5 years, I taught kids between the ages of 3 and 6, and I'd see them 5 days a week every morning. I became like their father. One class I had for 3 years, seeing them 5 days a week, 2.5 hours every day. It's such a bond that you have.
Yes,
and then what I realized later is I had to speak in a language they didn't understand to help them perceive meaning to things. And that's astrology, because of course I can't teach everybody I come across. I can't put them through 4 years of training, which you sort of need to understand the bare bones and get fluent in the language of astrology.
Right.
So I have to be a bit like, the skill that I was taught by teaching them in a language they didn't know to give enough meaning to where they're at has actually been very valuable. So these trainings are actually part of our lives. It's just we maybe don't, because we're such a linear focus society, that we don't see that kind of like curling around snake of our lives that are picking up all these skills, like you with Latin and Greek and the monastery and the music. I mean, to me, you're still a musician. You said in the message, your wife, because you prefer the night world, and you said your wife says it's because you're a musician. And I think perhaps you're still a musician because when you're playing on the keyboard, you're playing your words out through the keys, and you're composing lectures and books. And yeah, to me, it's still musical what you do.
Yes, yes. Hillman used to say that to me, that you're a musician. That's your problem and that's your strength.
Yeah. Yeah, Venus up the top there. One of the Muses, maybe. I mean, music and the Muses, right? So like the essential muse, perhaps.
Yes.
So maybe we're landing back on the spring that feeds the Muses and the muse that feeds the MC, which then we find form in and take shape in the 10th. Feels like somewhere where all of this conversation might come together. What do you think?
Yes, it makes a great deal of sense to me.
It does to me too.
Yeah. And I've always felt that I've always been fascinated by the 10th house. Some of them I ignore altogether, like they're not in my mind. They're not part of my vocabulary. I don't have to be. I'm not a professional.
Yeah.
But the 10th house has been in my mind as kind of the primary one for me, the primary house. So when we're talking about it tonight, I see why. I can see why. Everything focuses there.
Yeah. I mean, this is like why I thought of you for the 10th house episode, because I can read it as with my astrology kind of language. I can read it in your words. Yeah.
Sure.
Isn't that fascinating that some houses we go like, yes, I understand this house, and some are like, I'll never understand. I'll never really quite get that house. It's also good encouragement for those that are on the journey out there that are going through my house journey, and to be okay with just leaving some houses behind, and just, it's okay. You don't need to know them all, but the ones that really draw you, let them draw you. Amazing. Well, that feels like a great place to wind up, Thomas, and I know it's getting late there as well. So thank you so much for sharing so generously. I guess I would put just an invitation for a final word. If you had anything that you want to speak to that might arise to the 10th, that's just kind of a little ending seed here that you'd want to drop from the tree.
Yeah. I'll tell you what comes to my mind is that I think people don't realize the strength and vastness of their calling.
Hmm.
The people who sell themselves short and aim too low. I think that it's a good idea to aim as high as you feel worthy of or want to. I always say that to people. Really, you can do a lot more than you think. If you just it's a lot of times we have an image of who we are that is too small. And it may have come from family or parents or who knows what, or where you happen to grow up or something, but it's too small. And I think a lot of the troubles we have in life, the dissatisfaction, comes from that we have these constraints that we have allowed to be around us in the 10th house.
Mm.
And that is really, thinking of it as a 10th house, you might think of it as something bigger, something quite big. That it's a very big thing. And your job is to see if you're up to it, to respond to it.
Indeed, yeah. I love that. I can feel that that 10th house speaking through you. So thank you, and thanks to the Muse and for Venus in Virgo for coming through here and helping us shape that up. That feels really true. To be okay with the magnitude of it, and I would say to add to that, the then as you talk about in your book, it will unfold, right? That it's not a one hit. I know exactly what it is. Go do it. Get the thing done. It's an unfolding.
And it will continue to unfold. So you don't want to reach a point where you give up and think, well, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, which it's unfolding for you right now, right? Even in your mid-80s to be still teaching clearly and writing and playing music, and so it's a fullness of things. It's not something you retire from.
No.
Yeah. To tire again. Okay. Amazing.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I don't think I've ever had a conversation exactly like this. The astrological funnel or whatever it is, filter, really does bring new thoughts to mind. It's very, very, very good.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. And maybe it connects back to your first book, The Planets Within, that I'll that I personally am going to go right now and get a hold of and read that, because I want to feel where your early astrological part of your calling was, and so I'm going to personally go back to that. But yes, thank you for coming along, and yeah, I'm glad that you can see why I love this thing, like, why I love this approach and what astrology helps us to focus into, because if we didn't have the 10th house as the focus of what we're talking about, we could go everywhere and anywhere. But that kind of like crystallizing force of the 10th here, or of astrology, has been really valuable for today. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on, and I'm looking forward to maybe we can do it again sometime.
Just let me know.
Beautiful.
I wish you all the best.
All right. Thanks so much, Thomas. Thank you for listening to On the Soul's Terms podcast. To support the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review, sharing with friends, or becoming a patron at patreon.com/onthesoulsterms. Until next time.